Today I'd like to consider the last 10%. Why is it that projects which seem so easy when you get started don't stay that way, especially when you get closer to the end? Why is it that when you're nearly done, you're probably only halfway finished? Have you ever congratulated yourself when working on a new project about what good progress you're making? Perhaps you've been working on it for a couple of hours, or days, or weeks, or even months, depending on the scale of the project. But when you're nearly done, you find out that you're actually only halfway through. What happened? Why is it that you suddenly became so unproductive? Why couldn't you get the project finished as efficiently as you started? Let's explain. The disproportionate weight of final details. We all know that starting a piece of work can be difficult. I circle tasks before starting. Sometimes it's provocation, but just as often, it's preparation. It's common practice for lawyers, in fact, to bill for thinking time, but this is unheard of in most other occupations. Much like when a house is being built, nothing seems to happen for weeks, and then suddenly the walls go up and a roof springs up. Preparation is, of course, an important part of everyone's work, but drawing the building analogy out further, there is also a period after the structure of the house is being built where nothing much seems to be happening, even though work on the inside is a beehive. The fundamentals must be right. If the basics are off, we are, of course, headed for trouble. But whether it's something like a little extra effort that you put into your communication or to your delivery of your solution, or even a wow moment in the mix, which wouldn't have been missed if you hadn't done it, but still it left an impression because you did. In other words, the last 10% is important. The last 10% is critical because it's also the bit which is often the most demanding and tiring. It's tweaks. It's detail. It's often scattered around in different parts and processes. And most challenging of all is that it's an indeterminate solution. We don't necessarily know how close we are to the end until we arrive. Let's consider navigating between excellence and perfection. We all know how difficult it can be to get into the flow of a certain project, and how difficult it can be to return to that productive state when interrupted. The whole of the late stages of a project or task can be a series of interruptions as the list of finishing touches and checks and balances turns into a growing list of new discoveries and additional ideas and tasks. It can feel like hard work. This is where a good and efficient workflow really pays dividends, as if things are quick and easy to do, they are more likely to get done. That last sentence is at the center of the dilemma around the last 10%. It's important, but it must balance against the enemy of all professional creative work, perfection. The difference between good and great is crucial, but the difference between great and perfect can be a futile pursuit. There must be a point at which the return isn't worth the investment, and perfection is, to all intents and purposes, unachievable. I used to teach an audio production, a course that I had run with mixed intake, but the very best was genuinely talented and went on to have productive and successful careers. On more than one occasion, I had to exert pressure to get these students to deliver their work, as they sometimes placed unachievable pressure on themselves. I'll level with you and say that this degree of diligence wasn't most of my experiences. But a less than perfect project which exists, delivered, and out into the world is infinitely better than a potentially perfect one which exists only in the ambition of its creator. Work must get finished, and delivering excellence isn't the same thing as chasing perfection. Finish the work. Do the details that matter. Then let it go. That's what professionals do. How do you draw the line between done and just one more tweak? And where do you set the boundaries? Want to learn more about maximizing your 10%? Give us a shout.